Ethan Brooks had owned the 6,800-acre ranch for nearly 15 years, without ever expecting trouble from the nearby HOA. Most of his land stretched across open prairie with only a few fenced roads leading through it. One quiet morning, he noticed unfamiliar tire tracks cutting deep across one of his western fields. Something on his property clearly didn't belong there. Curious about the strange tracks, Ethan followed them deeper into his ranch until he heard the distant sound of aircraft engines. As he climbed a small hill, he froze in disbelief. A twin-engine airplane was parked on a long dirt strip carved directly into his private property. Someone had secretly built and operated an airstrip without his permission. Ethan quietly photographed everything he could see before approaching the fenced runway entrance. Several workers acted as if the airstrip belonged to them. None of them questioned why they were operating on someone else's land. Ethan realized this was much bigger than simple trespassing. Before Ethan could ask any questions, Karen Whitmore arrived in her luxury SUV with several HOA board members. She confidently claimed the runway belonged to the HOA's new community aviation project. Ethan calmly explained that every acre beneath the runway was legally his property. Karen simply laughed. Karen insisted that old neighborhood documents gave the HOA permission to use the land. Ethan knew those claims made no sense because the ranch had never been part of any HOA. He warned her to stop using the runway immediately. Karen refused and ordered another aircraft to prepare for takeoff. Instead of arguing further, Ethan contacted the county recorder's office and requested every historical property record. Within hours, certified ownership documents confirmed that the entire runway sat completely inside his ranch boundaries. Karen's paperwork had no legal authority whatsoever. Ethan reported the unauthorized airstrip to state aviation officials and the FAA. He carefully submitted aerial photos, GPS coordinates, and ownership records. The inspector reviewing the complaint immediately recognized several serious safety concerns. A formal investigation began the very next day. The following morning, FAA Inspector Michael Harris arrived with county deputies and inspection equipment. Karen greeted them with complete confidence, believing they were there to approve the runway. Ethan quietly watched as the inspectors walked directly toward the unauthorized landing strip. Karen still had no idea what was coming. The FAA inspectors measured the runway, examined fuel storage, and reviewed operating records. Within minutes, they discovered multiple violations involving permits, safety markings, and unauthorized operations. Karen's confident smile slowly disappeared. The inspectors became noticeably more serious with every finding. The lead FAA inspector finally turned toward Karen with an official enforcement notice in his hand. He explained that the runway would be immediately closed pending investigation, and that additional federal penalties could follow. Ethan remained calm while workers quietly stopped every aircraft operation. The secret airstrip had finally been shut down. The FAA officials placed temporary closure signs across the entire runway and ordered every aircraft to remain grounded. Pilots quietly shut down their engines while workers removed equipment from the landing area. Karen protested loudly, insisting the HOA had every right to continue operations. Nobody listened as the inspectors continued documenting violations. Inspector Harris reviewed historical satellite images that clearly showed the runway had been constructed only months earlier. County records confirmed no aviation permits had ever been issued for Ethan's property. Karen's explanation became weaker with every new piece of evidence. The investigation was now entirely based on official records. The inspectors walked the entire length of the runway, carefully measuring distances and documenting every safety concern. Temporary fuel storage and missing warning markers raised even more questions. Ethan quietly answered every question with supporting documents. Karen remained completely silent for the first time. Several neighboring ranch owners arrived after hearing about the federal inspection. Many admitted they had often seen planes using the runway, but assumed Ethan had approved everything. Ethan calmly explained he had never authorized any aircraft operations. The witnesses willingly shared what they had observed. The county surveyor arrived with modern GPS equipment to verify every property line. After several careful measurements, the digital maps perfectly matched Ethan's ownership records. There was no remaining dispute about where the runway had been built. Karen could no longer argue with the evidence. Federal officials informed Karen that operating an unauthorized private airstrip involved multiple regulatory violations. They carefully explained every enforcement step without raising their voices. Karen's confidence disappeared as she realized the investigation had moved beyond the HOA. Ethan remained calm throughout the conversation. Workers began removing temporary runway equipment under the supervision of federal inspectors. Fuel containers, portable lights, and aviation signs were loaded onto trucks. The once busy airstrip quickly became an empty stretch of dirt. Ethan watched peacefully as his property returned to normal. The final inspection report officially confirmed that the airstrip had operated without the required approvals. FAA officials thanked Ethan for reporting the issue responsibly and preserving important evidence. Karen quietly accepted the written notice without saying another word. The investigation was finally complete. Over the following weeks, the unauthorized runway gradually disappeared as the land was restored to its natural condition. Fresh grass replaced tire marks, and ranch fences were repaired. Peace returned to Ethan's property exactly as it had been before. The hidden airstrip became only a memory. Standing beneath the evening sky, Ethan looked across thousands of peaceful acres, knowing his property rights had finally been respected. He hoped the experience would remind others that land ownership should always be honored through proper legal channels. The ranch was quiet once again. A new chapter had begun.